They'd come to get a better sense of the man, his policy positions, what his future approach as president might be, and his worldview. But these were no softball questions, as this exchange with moderator Ted Koppel reveals.
Why are you so insistent upon maintaining sanctions at a time when it can be argued that the South African government has made more concessions, your release being only one of them, than it has ever made in the past 40 years?
I should know better about this matter, Mr. Koppel, than you.
No doubt.
New York's first black mayor, David Dinkins, sat there in the audience alongside the Reverend Jesse Jackson, looking on. We found the now 88-year-old former mayor at a book signing event in Manhattan, and immediately he spoke about the coup achieved by his city in getting Madiba to visit them first.
They wanted him in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. They wanted him in Atlanta and Los Angeles. But we were fortunate that we got him to come here. And he stayed with me and my bride in Gracie Mansion. In fact, he and the ANC just took over Gracie Mansion. And we have a granddaughter, and he was the same always, whether playing with her or meeting with Ted Koppel and others who tried to trip him up, but he would not be moved.
Madiba held firm, facing a barrage of questions like this one on his friendships with Arafat, Castro and Gaddafi, leaders many viewed as having questionable human rights records.
Are these your models of leaders of human rights? And if so, would you want a Gaddafi or an Arafat or a Castro to be a future president of South Africa?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. That we can and we will never do.
Wanted to do that town hall in Harlem.
I asked Mayor Dinkins how he remembers that event over 25 years ago, given the recalibration of U.S. relations, particularly with Cuba in recent months.
It may suggest how smart he is, or was. Now Nelson Mandela recognized. I've been to Cuba once. I went there a couple of years ago with Charlie Rangel. And the thing I remember, two things. One, Castro can talk forever. I mean, he speaks like 2 or 3 hours. And the other thing is, the whole place looks like it needs a coat of paint. Nelson Mandela knew that this day would come, I guess.
Madiba was asked about race relations in the United States, but refused to be drawn into the internal politics of the country, as he did again with this question.
I don't want to leave the impression that this is only going to be a Jewish-black issue. There are a great many Cuban Americans in this country who will be just as offended by some of the comments you've made about Fidel Castro and Cuba.
I have replied to one of our friends here that I have refused to be drawn into the differences that exist between various communities inside the USA. You have not commented that I am going to offend anybody by refusing to involve myself in the internal affairs of the USA. of the USA. Why are you so keen that I should involve myself in the internal affairs of Cuba and Libya?
No.
I expect you to be consistent. I don't know if I have paralyzed you.
No.
I asked Dinkins how he felt watching the entire exchange.
That's not something that would have upset us, not me, not Jesse. I mean, this was our hero. I mean, are you kidding? How dare you? And he just, God, what a man. And see, he believed deeply that you could use love to counter hate, and he did. I mean, who among us could be as, not necessarily forgiving, but let's say understanding as Nelson Mandela. And I point out often, as you doubtless know, that his captors were invited to his inauguration. And I'll never forget, I'm standing next to Colin Powell, and they had a flyover of planes, and Colin Powell said, "Look," and they're all his.
As Madiba then and throughout his life, continuing to fly above the fray. Sherman Bricebys, SABC News, New York.